actually are going to be doing the lesson in leaders meeting, which is reviewing personal contribution. But before I do that, a little bit of teaching on how we build the church here. So every church, you have to understand the culture of the city, of the nation, etc. So what we've found over the years works best throughout the year is we start January with a January workshop. Over Christmas, because it's easier to make money during that period more than any other time, we encourage people to work and give their special contribution in January. Then through the year, we find out who are struggling. We do a sponsored event. This year, we raised $27,000 doing the balloons, and people do that. And then a little bit of extra with the taxes that come in July. Preferably, you don't have to use the taxes, so you can use that to go to a conference, go on a holiday, and everything like that. Then from sort of July onwards, we start talking about building people's career from now until Christmas. Well, why? Most people get a pay rise in July or in January. Hence today why I did the lesson on time to get a pay rise. So when you do a lesson and when you push something in a church is really important, because you can do a lesson, but it may not be relevant at that time. So from now, we talk about reviewing people's personal contribution. Why? Well, this is one of the areas we find out who's in trouble, who needs help, who can give more, everything like that. So there's a certain flow to how you build a church, okay? So today we're going to do the lesson on reviewing personal contribution with a review of you reviewing your personal contribution. And the same way that I've just taken you through special contribution, you will find there are those that go, hey, yeah, you know what? I need to give some more money. That's where my heart's at. That's where my finances are at. There are those, like Wayne, that will go, okay, it's time for faith, isn't it? It's time to give more, and they go find more. And then there are going to be those that go, you know what, I'm absolutely strapped, and no, I need to get a better job, and then I'll give some more. Okay, but what it does is it reveals where everybody's at, so the leaders and the shepherds can get to work in helping people. All right? So, reviewing personal contribution. First of all, a heart check. Jeremiah 17:9. The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? So everyone, so often, it's a great thing to review how your heart is doing with regard to giving to God our best in the area of finances. So you have to ask yourself, am I giving a good amount? Am I giving a great amount? Or am I giving a generous amount? And really have a heart check about where your life is at. Being asked to give money does not make us struggle. You know, yes, it does. No, it doesn't. It simply shows if and where you are struggling financially. So it may show you that you have no money, okay? Therefore, you're struggling. Or even debts that need to be addressed. And we need to help people who come into the kingdom to get out of debt. It may show you that you have money and are being selfish with it. It may show that you are being faithful and generous with your money. All it does is reveal where your heart is at. We may need to spend less in areas as we find ourselves being greedy. Having someone review what we spend our money with is always revealing. You know, there are actually a lot of apps now that you can do that. Even you can go to your bank account. So I've changed bank accounts, and it'll tell you what I spend all my money on. It sort of goes entertainment, bills, and I'm like, I didn't even ask it to do it, but it's holding me accountable on where my money is going now. So if the banks do that, it shows you that it's a need in people's lives, whether you're a Christian or whether you're not a Christian. You know, you might find all of a sudden, you know what, I just didn't realize I spent so much money on transport or Ubers or eating out or gym or whatever it is. Okay? So we may need to change our priorities. Obviously, we all understand that it's God and his kingdom first, not ourselves. We may need to get a better job, which is what we talked about today. There's nothing wrong with that. But you know, sometimes it takes somebody to push you to get a better job. And there's nothing wrong with that. If the Apostle Paul, somebody had to come up to him and go, hey, what are you waiting for? Get baptized. There's nothing wrong with coming up to you going, hey, what are you waiting for? You've been in the same job 3 years, 5 years. Get a better job. Because we can all get comfortable. You know, and what is the need of that? Well, it's to have a greater career to glorify God. Most of you went to university or at university so you can get a great job. Some of you have a degree and you're not using it or using the qualification in any area. Seems like a bit of a waste, especially when you have something like HEX debt when you have to pay it back. So what is the purpose of all this? Ultimately, it's to help people build their lives. You know, most areas in our lives tend to drift if they're not addressed. So Hebrews 3 verse 12 says, "See to it, brothers and sisters, that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. But encourage one another daily as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness." You know, finances are no exception to this. One of the things I never expected in life is when I was a student and when I was poor and I was an intern, I gave very generously. And I counted every penny because I had to count every penny. You know, I was down Aldi like, can I get the cheap rice or the cheap rice or the cheap rice? So I really was actually very good at finances. Then when the movement fell apart and I got lots of money, I didn't want to give money. And it was just a really weird feeling. I now have money and I didn't want to give it. I never expected that. Do you know what I mean? You think, oh, when you get money, it'd be easier to give. So the heart can really mess you up. That's why we need discipling. You know, greed is ever present in our lives. Luke 12:15. Then he said to them, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." So when he says keep guard, you sort of get two guys outside a door, right? You're like, we're waiting, there's two of us here and we're going to make sure none of it gets in. But I don't think that's how we deal with greed. For example, what would the equivalent of that be? Putting a block on your phone for any advertising for new clothes. That would be guarding your heart, okay? Putting a block on your phone for whatever it is you spend. So for me, figurines, okay? Not allowed to come in, like there's an anti-figurine block on my phone, okay? But that's what but how many of us have blocks on things we're tempted with? Very few, if any. What we actually have is 10 apps to give us that information, to tempt us. So that's something we can go back and talk about. You know, our goal as Christians and in the church is that everyone's needs are equally met and everyone is equally generous towards God. So 2 Corinthians 8:13, "Our desire is not that others might be relieved while you are hard pressed, but that there may be equality. At the present time, your plenty will supply what they need, so that in turn their plenty will supply what you need. The goal is equality, as it is written, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little." So we're all meant to have the same heart and the same purpose and the same level of generosity. How much that actually is different for everybody, isn't it? But you're in the same heart. We're in it together. So point one, review your budget. Okay? I've got a couple of apps and stuff like this. We recently had to do this we got with a financial advisor, etc. And he said, "I want to know everything you spend. Here's the thing, you need to put it all in." And so in June, me and Kerry put it all in, and you go, "Ah!" We spend what on what? But it's a really good exercise to do. And it was about trying to figure out our future and our finance and everything. He goes, "I need to know where you're going, and you need to know where you're going." But tonight, over this week, put in, what is your income, your salary and other? What are your expenses? Contribution, rent, food, phone, electricity, etc. Do you have savings? All right, we are meant to save the world and save our money. Okay, hands up if you have savings. Okay, I'm not going to ask you, everybody needs savings. Okay, in that way, special contribution is not a struggle. You just give out your savings and keep filling up your savings. Okay, total expenses, income minus expenses, total surplus. You've got to look at things in the eye and go, this is the reality of the situation. Is this really happening in your life? You've got to be really honest with yourself. If you give yourself false information, you make bad decisions. You've got to keep to your budget. Do you keep to your budget? Do you need to make adjustments for the reality of your life? I know I always overspend my budget, so I put an allowance in there for overspending on my budget. You go, "Well, you shouldn't." Well, I do. So I can either live in denial and get angry every week that there's no money, all right, or I can go, actually, I've got a hedge fund with myself to do this or that. That's dealing with reality, okay? Are all debts included in this budget? Oh, I don't want to address my debts. If you don't address your debts, they get bigger and bigger and bigger, okay? Never be scared of debt. I've been working with Maddie. I think Maddie came into the ministry with like $80,000 in debt, 9 different loans from that. We've got rid of 5 of them already, okay, within 8 months, We attacked it. We found out ways that you can get this and things you don't have to pay back. You need to attack the debt, and you'll be surprised how many different debts can be forgiven. Are you in debt? And if so, what is your plan to get out of debt and start to get some savings? Romans 13:8, let no debt remain outstanding except the continual debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. So yeah, there is debt when it comes to a mortgage, but I'm talking about credit cards and all that stuff, which is you just spending money on interest, which is just giving money away. Point 2, are you putting God number 1? Do you do your budget with God in mind first? We do not do our budget and then give to God out of what is left over or what we think we can afford. We give to God first before everything else, and that means everything. Proverbs 3 verse 9, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. So when you go back to your budget and take out all the luxuries, okay, you'll start to see this. If you take out the unnecessary things, your wants, such as take out gym, it's a want, not a need. Take out Netflix, it's a want, not a need. Take out holidays, it's a want, not a need. Take out debts, it's a want and a need. All these things in of themselves are fine. But that's not actually giving to God first, is it? If you put those in. Get down to the basics of life, and then you'll see how much money you really have. And it's actually really surprising. Okay? Now you know how much wealth you really have. Ask yourself what your salary is, weekly, monthly. Then put next to it how much your weekly, monthly contribution to God is. Are you giving to God with your first fruits? This is between you and God. This is not between you and the church or you and anybody. This is about you sitting in front of God honestly and going, who am I? Where am I at? Where is my heart at? And you may need to ask for some advice on some discipling, like, I feel like I'm being greedy. And I think people go between actually they're not in tune with the fact that they're greedy, or you have people that, occasionally you have people that just want to live off bread and water and eat potatoes. There's a guy called Roland in the old movement. He literally used to walk around and eat potatoes. Now you can eat real food. So there's not many of those in the world today, but sometimes you get those aesthetic type people. Are you being generous? Proverbs 11:25, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Now write out what your weekly salary is, your weekly contribution, and ask yourself, are you being generous towards God? That's the real issue. Maybe you're actually being generous to yourself more than God. So the goal is you building a relationship with God. So I was asked this week, what happens if you teach just being generous towards God, and you've got a young convert, and they look at their salary, all right, and they go out and they only give $20, and you know that they earn a lot more. I go, well, that's between them and God. If that's where they're going to start, that's where they're going to start, right? Now, over time, they'll talk to people and etc. And naturally, when you're in a group, things get talked about. I go, oh, wow. I thought, maybe they'll hear about it's not good if you spend more on your date than on contribution. I'll go, oh, I do that. You've got to expect God to work in people's lives, okay? Don't jump in where God will work. That's your lack of faith, okay? And I think you've got to really believe that God is real. The other thing you might, as people share, we share every week about benevolence, about contribution, everything. People will pick it up. People have good hearts, all right? But when they feel like you have made them give, that's when the bitterness starts to come in, okay? And that's what we do not want, all right? So it may take a little bit longer for people to get there, but hearts are very precious and you can't bruise them, okay? Point 3, the challenge. 2 Corinthians 9:6. Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all you need, you will abound in every good work. As it is written, they have freely scattered the gifts to the poor, their righteousness endures forever. Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and increase your store of seed and enlarge the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion, and through us your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. So what am I asking everybody to do? I'm asking for you to take your contribution before God this week, to go through this study, for you to get a conviction on it and go to him and go, God, am I being generous? And then come back, and our administrator is Yelena or Charlotte, and go, this is my contribution. Okay, that's what I expect everybody to do. All right, do not give in to fear. Know that God will supply your needs generously after you have rededicated your heart and wealth to him. Bring yourself to a decision where you can say, dear God, I wish to give you X amount because I love you and I want your kingdom to grow to bring you glory. Okay, Matthew 6:33, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. John 15:8, this is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourself to be my disciples. Now, just from experience, this is where I think most people happen. You have somebody who hears this, you go, you know what? Yeah, I need to adjust my contribution. And then they just email it in. All right? There are those that go, okay, I need faith. I can't adjust it. I need to do what Wayne does, and I go, boss, I need some more money. And there are those that don't have that same amount of faith. And they go, you know what? I need help getting a better job. Can I get a better job? All right? That's what the shepherds and the staff are there to help you do, is get a better job. So I sat down with Cavendish yesterday. I went through his resume. I was a recruiter. I know what I'm doing in that. There's a whole section in OneNote about how to get a better job, etc. So the goal is ultimately we're trying to raise our contributions so we can do more by building your lives. So nobody should feel burdened. Okay, that is not the goal. We should all go, great, this is an opportunity for me to grow emotionally, spiritually, career-wise, and in faith. And then God will be glorified, the contribution will go up, we'll hire more staff, like we've got to hire Ash, because he's no longer working for his company. She and Themis have moved in as a married couple, Jesse's back and everything like that. We go, great, I've got a better job, we're going better, and obviously I'll earn more money, and prayerfully you'll start savings, so when January comes for special, you just go, special, no problem, because now I'm somebody that gets savings. Then all next year, your extra money goes into your savings, you can go on holiday, lots of conferences, and you have a wonderful life with God. Amen.
To hear more from Dr. Joe Willis, check out his 2 books on Amazon, The Art of Spiritual Warfare, Practicals for Becoming a Prayer Warrior, and Money is the Answer for Everything. Click the links in the description below. Also, for more life-changing lessons, subscribe to his YouTube channel, Dr. Joe Willis.